Welcome to the Real B.S. about AI.
We're your hosts, Alethea and Bob.
So, Alethea, Can you believe it? Here we are. We are sitting live, at least pre-recorded, but we're live while we're doing this, which I think is the important part, in this lovely podcast booth here in the Lead Library, and we're finally bringing this thing into life. So tell me about where our title came from and even why, just in general, that we're here.
So the Real BS about AI. So I always joke that I'm in the AI space because my initials are AI.
Which is funny because I always joke that my primary skill set is BS.
Right. And your initials unofficially, but officially are BS. So, we thought it was kind of a cute play, and it's kind of true. There's a lot of BS about AI. So why not sift through it and get people the information that they need to know and share our discoveries and maybe have some fun along the way as we share what we've discovered.
Awesome. And I hope that's something that we deliver on. So before we jump in, since we're not talking about Alethea Inns, we're talking about AI. What do we really mean by AI in this context?
Sure. So I think people really need to understand the base definition before we even get going. And the important part about understanding what AI is it's a machine that imitates human thinking. It has to reason, it has to learn, and it has to adapt. Otherwise, it's not AI. It's usually a rules-based algorithm or a different kind of closed system. So learning, reasoning, and adapting are the key markers of AI.
So now that we know what AI is, why are we spending this time here at UNLV? Why are we focusing on UNLV? Why aren't we just sitting somewhere in LinkedIn trying to sell our own personal brand?
Well, I think we're in a unique place. UNLV is a very unique institution for many, many reasons. And I think that our community is learning as we go, and we've been given the freedom to explore. And we're going to talk about the freedom to fail in the AI space as well. There's been a few initiatives on campus exploring AI, like our AI Fellows program that was initiated by the provost and now interim president. We have a lot of groups on campus that are trying to find answers and how we use it responsibly across campus. We have the AI task force from the faculty senate, and then we have distributed groups across all different areas of practice in administration and operations and research and teaching and learning that are working either independently or as groups to figure out the AI space for our campus and for our uses and for UNLV specifically. So there's a lot of opening and opportunity there for us to explore. And I think that's one of the main reasons we're sitting here, is to talk about that, but also to get people engaged and involved in the conversation.
And I absolutely agree with you. And I think we've got a wonderful opportunity here to do this. When we look at the landscape across UNLV, what are the tools that we have access to and what are the tools that we don't have access to?
Sure. So the main tool, because it's the most commonly known, I feel like AI tool is ChatGPT. So we do have a pilot program currently where people can pay for their $240 a year for their license. That's available for purchase. We'll probably continue the pilot program if I had to guess. We also have Google Gemini available. It's part of our Google suite of products. And then we're using AI in other applications such as network failure detection and in our chatbots. But we're also exploring it in IT, our department, IT, for other things like work efficiencies and, in our programming. And we have our AI IT collab that we're also hosting and starting to explore how we can use it internally. So there's a lot happening across campus with AI, both officially and, I guess, unofficially.
So that's an interesting point that you make, because you've listed some very intentional tools. Does that mean then that UNLV as a whole has this whole unsanctioned or prohibitive tools that we should not be using? Because for me personally, and again, just for clarity, these are tools that I use personally. They pay for them personally, but I use Claude, I use Gemini Pro, Perplexity. Like I've set up my own Olama server. Like I've done a lot of these things. I'll use Midjourney. I'll use Firefly. I will use a lot of different AI tools that UNLV doesn't provide or support. They're things that I pay for myself. So should I not be doing that? Or if I am doing that, what should I be mindful of?
So there's nothing to say what you shouldn't be doing, right? We want to encourage academic freedom. We want to encourage research freedom. We want to encourage, creativity and innovation. So the key thing is just being careful about what you're putting into these third-party tools.
I think as my team would say, it's data, data, data. So when we talk about the importance of data and data privacy and data security when it comes to AI, why is it then that when we talk about AI, we are only using these very specific tools that we talk about?
Because anything that's supported through IT at an enterprise level, we have data agreements, and that's super important because it's protecting the data. So if you do have a university UNLV ChatGPT account, you'll notice a little disclaimer at the bottom that says, hey, it's not using your data to train the model. So that's why it's really important to defer to the tools that are university supported when possible, right? But that's not to prohibit creativity and use of the tools outside. You just want to be really careful that you're adhering to things that we're all required to do, like HIPAA and FERPA, and that we're not inadvertently putting any institutional data or personal data at risk. So we don't want to put student names or process, like grades or, appointment notes from, a clinic appointment if it's not a sanctioned in unofficial terms, if it's not a supported tool. So we just need to be intentional about how we're using it.
And I think that's really the right word, making sure that we are functioning in data safe environments and using data safe tools. And when we're not, tread cautiously, right? I remember when the internet was first a thing way back in the day and my beard was not nearly as great as it is now. But just even having those conversations of where you should use your credit card, what sort of information you should put in a website. And now all of us are like, hey, everybody's got all my password saves. I got 15 different credit cards, saved online. And so our awareness and our understanding of these policies will continue to change as this medium changes. But at the end of the day, we have a job, a responsibility to be good stewards of the data that we have in here. And so even though you will talk about AI tools and I will talk about many random crazy AI tools, notice that it's always done with this mindset of data privacy and data security first. I do a lot of things on my own personal devices just because I would hate for any reason to introduce anything that might create an insecurity within our environment. So practice safe AI the way you would practice safe anything else here around campus. So now that we know what the purpose of this is for two human beings to talk about some AI stuff, and we have a sense of what it is, the target audience that we have, which is really just our UNLV community around here. Why are you and I sitting here as opposed to all the other smart people that we have on campus?
That's a really good question. How did we get here, Bob?
How did we get here? I believe you talked me into it and then scheduled some time in the lead library.
That may have been part of how it happened. I think the first thing to let everyone know is that Bob and I have had a lot of really interesting conversations about AI, and I think people are mildly entertained by them. So that was part of the impetus for this. But a little bit about me. So I do work for UNLV IT. I'm an instructional technology specialist, but I'm not a programmer. I'm not, some super fancy Linux, Python type of person, although I am getting better. I am learning.
You don't want to throw out like Ruby and Rails and AWS. I mean, like if you're just throw out programming language, C#, let's dig in.
I did create an app in Streamlit, but we can talk about that later. I'm very proud of it. Basically, I copied and pasted from ChatGPT. But I think the short answer is when I first discovered AI 2 years ago in our environments, in our Zoom environment, I was like, this is interesting. Everybody needs to know about this, right? So I dove in and I asked the questions and I expressed the interest and I was like, what is this? And I quickly realized that this will transform how we work, how we learn, how we communicate. And you and I are going to have some really great conversations, right, about the humanity of AI and how it, translates into how we're using the tool. But also, I think my diverse background really lends itself to the conversation. So, fun fact. If we ever play two truths and a lie, now I can't win because you'll know everything. But I was...
There's only two true things about you. Everything else is a lie, isn't it?
Right. So I was a gemologist. So I did a lot of research in materials science. So I did a lot of testing and research on diamonds, gemstones, fancy colored diamonds.
Are they really a girl's best friend? Is that scientific?
Yes,
Okay.
they are. I mean, they are for me. I don't know. Anyone else can agree to disagree, but yes, for me, yes. But that really helped me dive deeper into the nature and structure of materials and what things are made of and what makes them them. I'm also a professional dancer, or was. So I was a professional ballet dancer and then a salsa dancer in the Latin styles. And I am currently a fitness instructor here in town. So that really helps me listen to my body and to my intuition and be connected to the creative parts of us as people, of myself. And then another thing that I think really got me deep into it, I know it's a long intro, but my dad is late stage dementia. And I really was fascinated and curious about AI and what makes us us, and the idea of sentience and the idea of what defines us beyond the brain. And so those are the things that helped me really explore it. So when this new tool came into our Zoom environment, it was an AI bot. I had a lot of questions and I ended up researching it and I took it to the Zoom engineers. We were one of the first institutions to actually alert Zoom that, hey, you have these AI bots joining your meetings. And it was harnessing data that was concerning. It was opt-out. So it was gathering things like age, race, position within the organization. And you had to opt out from it collecting your data. And it seemed very predatory. And I wanted to learn more about what is this AI bot. And that took me all the way down the road to where we are now, which I wanted to know more about what is this AI thing and how do we responsibly use it and keep our stakeholders here on campus safe.
I love that you came to AI from a place of curiosity. Yeah. I think that's such important. And most importantly, that you had identified a problem that you wanted to solve. And it really reminds me of one of the books that I pass out to all my IT colleagues who are graduating, different programs. It's a book called The Cuckoo's Egg by Clifford Stahl. He was a physicist who ran out of grant funding, started working in a computer lab at UC Berkeley, ended up catching the Hanover hacker back when the internet was first forming and all these amazing things. And I learned so much about the way the networks are built across campuses, the way they're built across the country, across the world. And it really just opened up my mindset. My story that brings me here is a little bit different than yours. I've shoveled rocks and I've watched a lot of dance movies. So whether it's, all of the classics, certainly that I have watched, but I don't do any of those things. My background is in theology and education and English literature. I've got, degrees in training and development and, management, but I don't have anything that is really technology. Technology has always been something that I've been passionate about because I think it's such an amazing tool to help us really bridge from one human to the next. And when I talk about IT in general, it's about humans serving humans, and this is just a tool. I came to AI because I'm fascinated by what it tells us about ourselves and what it tells us about the people who use it and even the way in which we use it. There's a curiosity that drives all these things. And more than anything, I think what I bring to this is I'm not afraid to look stupid. Here I am. I'm seeing in a podcast. I do not have a face for podcasts. My mom would barely say I have a voice for radio. WKL Kalkaska Radio. For all my Kalkaska friends who happen to be listening, here to this lovely podcast. But what I am doing is I'm willing to try. I'm willing to fail. And most importantly, I'm willing to share what my experience is. And my experience is incomplete and it's imperfect. And I'm not an expert. It's just something that I've learned that may or may not make your life better by doing these things. But I have this firm belief that the more boats that I can lift up by sharing the knowledge that I have, then somebody can build on that knowledge and go from there. If I've already climbed a mountain, I don't want you to have to climb that. That's not the kind of human being that I am. I want to save you time. Great. Let's already start you on level 57 so that we can get to a level 100. But if everybody's got to keep starting at the bottom again and learn all of the junk that I've learned over the past 2 years, then we're just wasting time. And you talked about one of the amazing things about AI in general is that it should be willing to learn and to grow, which are the same things that we're supposed to be doing. So you and I are not experts in any way, shape, or form. We are just two human beings talking to you and you're listening. Says more about you than it does about us. But here you are trying to find some interesting things about AI. But we do work for an R1 university. We've got some freaking brilliant people who are in this space. How are we going to ensure that it's not just two newbies who are down here talking about AI like we know what we're doing? How do we start to bring in that expertise that's around campus?
I think the exciting thing about something like this is that we can tap into all of the great work that's already happening on campus. And there's been so many conversations already across disciplines, across areas of practice. So we want to hear from the people that are leading in the space. But we also want to hear from the people that are resistant. We want to hear why. We want to hear about their concerns and their thoughts. But through the Teaching and Learning Commons, through our amazing colleagues in online ed, through the people that we know through the teaching and learning spaces, there's a lot of instructors that are doing things that are really, really interesting and adaptive and innovative. And we've, in our AI Fellows cohort, we've had, you and I have had the opportunity to lead in the administrative innovation space. And the projects that they're working on are really cool, right? So we want to hear from the people that are using AI in administration. There's a research cohort. How is it innovating in research and making researchers more effective at what they do? So there's these big areas of practice that are part of that AI's Fellows program as well that we want to explore. But we want to bring in people from computer science and our colleagues and members of the AI task force from the Faculty Senate to share their insights, share their concerns, and be part of the conversation, because there's a lot of AI conversation happening on campus. So wouldn't it be great if we had a podcast to sort of centralize those conversations and share them? So I'm excited for it.
And I think that's a wonderful call out, because we do have so many human beings on campus who are doing these things. We're here today in part, and the reason why we have ChatGPT even as a pilot in part, because of the senior leadership that we have on campus. Then Provost Heavey, who's now interim president, shout out to interim President Heavey, in case you're listening at home. We are grateful because we had some leaders who were insightful and said we need to put resources behind here. And we don't always understand. We don't know what the implications are, but we know that we need to invest in this process. And for me, this is a return on that investment, where you and I were entrusted with these conversations. We've led these groups of humans. Let's make sure that we're sharing this information out, because that is the nature of higher education, that we learn, we explore, and that we share. I appreciate these folks who want to build amazing things and monetize them and do all this wonderful stuff. But at the end, I work for a public institution because I'm here to make the world a better place. And I think that this gives us an opportunity. So if you're one of those amazing human beings that are around campus, you talked about a lot of the folks. The library also has a large contingent of human beings who are focusing in the IA space. Absolutely. I want to make sure that we're acknowledging the work that they're doing. Yes. Our intention, and of course, intention and reality can be two completely things. I know Rebel Ready Week is just around the corner for us. But our intention is that every 2 weeks, you and I are sitting down and having a conversation and then sharing it with our community, a benefit or not a benefit. Either you walk away with something good or you don't. But we're additionally partnering with these other channels that we have around campus to do more intentional writing around practical uses of AI. I love the theoretical stuff. You and I can talk about that all day long. I can reference all my amazing movies, starting back from Lawnmower Man until now, and all the parts in between, but we really want to make sure that we are sharing this information with others, and that it's practical and that it's useful, and that we're giving you things to do. So one of our very first episodes that we have coming up is all about how you can use AI to write an effective email. But even as part of that, we want to make sure that we're continuing that conversation on. We're giving you some very intentional prompts afterwards, and some of those things that we can't do necessarily in a podcast or a vodcast in this case. And so we want to make sure that you've got some written documentation. And there are some folks who don't have a 20-minute drive in the morning, and I'm the last person that they want to hear as they're coming in. But we want to make sure that the knowledge and information is giving out. That's our obligation, and that's our kind of responsibility. So I'm excited to start this adventure. I'm excited to kind of have this partnership. One of the things that we have talked about, even just in general, to bring us here in the first place, is AI. You got started because of a curiosity. What about you personally? What was the first thing that you did with AI that really got you excited about this experience?
I was super excited to see how it was able to reflect my humanity. It was unexpected. So I'm Canadian, so I always say please and thank you. I mean, we might as well just close that right out of the gate, everyone. I'm from Canada, right? So please and thank you are a part of my vernacular. And noticing how it was like a very reflective of my please and thank you style. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Why is that? And it says right out to me, hey, I'm actually reflecting how you're reflecting to me, because people like to be spoken to in the way that they input. And I know that we've had conversations about, like, should you put please? Because putting please into ChatGPT costs billions of dollars. And I think you're going to talk about this at some point too, about how I'm going to keep saying please, not only because I'm Canadian and it's built in and I lose citizenship if I don't, but it's also a part of how I work and operate, and it reflects that back. And I know, like I said, we'll have conversations about that, but I'm still a proponent of please. But that was the first most fascinating thing to me was, I'm kind of looking in a bit of a mirror, and how do I explore who I am through this tool?
I think that's a great insight. For me, it was very similar. I enjoyed those things. Mine always came from a place of curiosity. I am by nature curious. I want to know everything about everything. The reason why I haven't finished my doctoral degree is because I needed a PhD in general studies. I mean, I want to know everything about everything because I want to understand how it all connects. I love Douglas Adams. We're most familiar with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. One of his other popular series is Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency, where he doesn't just solve the crime, he solves the whole crime, right? And there's this tagline in there about the fundamental interconnectedness of all things. And for me, that's what I love, to understand how things connect. So to be able to ask these random questions, and of course, friends, AI is not accurate. So just because an AI gives you a response does not mean in any way, shape, or form that it's true. And that was the part that I loved most because it made me more curious. When it would give me a fact that I thought was fascinating, I had to dig at it to find out, is this a real thing? And I was able to find those connections. And then I find myself sitting on a plane discussing a book that I read because nobody else is around. Like I just read this entire amazing book called Snow Crash, back from the early 90s, where this gentleman coined the term metaverse. It's the first time that book is used, but I had a lot of questions because it's built on theology and technology and all of these other things. And I didn't have anyone to discuss some of these Mesopotamian practices that were being described here. Enter into ChatGPT, where I'm able to sit there on the plane and be asking these questions of investigation. And so for me, it became a portal for curiosity. And when I had a question of something that I wanted to explore, AI gave me a platform that I could do that safely. I'm not bothering the people around me. We've got a lot of experts. Hey, Rakitha, how do I do this? Hey, Pravin, how do I do this? I didn't have to bother them. I was able to explore my own curiosity. And I think any sort of technology tool that we have, if you explore it that way, it's a completely different experience than if I treat it like it's just a search engine where I'm like, give me the information on this, which again, friends, and the same thing, just because you Google something and it kicks back results does not mean that they're real or accurate websites. It's the exact same principle. AI is just as inaccurate as it can be. And our job is to do our due diligence. Alethea, I'm excited about this opportunity that we have to share together. I am grateful for all the people who have partnered with us to support us in this process. You talked already about the AI fellowship that the provost office kicked off. You've talked about the work that other teams have done here around campus, the works that OIT is doing in this space. I'm grateful for our faculty members who are struggling with this. How can they use this to be better educators? How can they use this to ensure that students aren't missing the content? Because you can use this to shortcut a lot of things. But if you don't understand that fundamental interconnectedness, you're missing all the things that you're building on. I am grateful for those administrative folks who are trying to solve everyday problems to make their life better. There's people who just want to be able to tell their phone to order their groceries and have it delivered by the time that they get home, or to plan their vacation to Canada because they know nothing about it. Somebody who is a new father who wants to use it on his way to the hospital to help him and his wife through the entire birthing process by using voice prompts on AI. To me, these are amazing ways in which human beings have used these tools, and it makes me curious. And my hope is that everybody that we partner with and bring here has the same sort of curiosity. Even those folks who think that this is a terrible waste of time, that it's just a manifestation of my own mental illness, that I'm using this as an opportunity to be dumber than I was before, which may or may not be true. But these folks who are curious and they just want to know more. And I think the whole real reason why we're doing this is because we're willing to just explore. And you mentioned that to fail, to try, and to share. And we work for an R1 institution, and that's really just the goal that we have. We have a public responsibility to share these things, to help educate, to frame, to revise, to pivot, and to grow again. And I think it happens by creating an opportunity where two people can just have a dialogue around their vulnerabilities and insecurities and just their use and their stumbling through this tool. And I'm excited for the opportunity to do it, and that we've got leadership that says, Bob, you and your team member can spend 2 hours a week, messing around with something like this, because we think at the end of the day, it adds value. And our hope is if you've taken the time to listen to this, that you found something of value. There's not a lot in this first episode. It's like episode 0. It's not even a real thing. It really is just our opportunity to introduce who we are as human beings and what our intention is. And so that everything that comes forth beyond this is a manifestation of that intention, that we want to use technology to make a world a better place. And whether it is AI or immersive learning or anything else that may be coming down the pipeline. And you've seen how fast this is accelerated. 2 years ago, we're sitting in our office office with our associate director. Hey, I saw on Reddit this crazy things about ChatGPT. Have you ever heard of it? And here we are, 2 years later, and this is the way in which the world has changed. I went to CES in January, and your lawnmower is being powered by AI. Friends, it's ridiculous how much this thing has become so pervasive. We keep reminding folks that AI is as dumb as it's ever going to be today. It'll never be dumber than it is now unless they update ChatGPT, in which case it might be dumber than it was the day before. But we can have that argument later on. And so I think there's a lot of gratitude and intention in the space. And my hope is that it brings benefit. And if one person benefits, then I think it was 2 hours well spent, because I do the same thing sitting in a classroom, asking you to come in to go to a training. I don't care if one person shows up. This is a random aside, so I apologize for wasting everybody's time, even the people who are sitting in this room. My dad was a minister, and he used to tell lots of minister jokes. And one of them was about this country preacher who went out to the small country church and, was all excited for a big service. Only one farmer shows up. And so the preacher asked the farmer, he's like, hey, farmer, so what happens when it's dinner time and you call the cows and only one of them shows up? Do you feed them? And the farmer's like, yes, sir. Preacher, I feed them. And so this guy launches into a big hellfire and brimstone sermon and all this other stuff. And the farmer gets up halfway through and says, oh, slow down, preacher. I said I feed him. I don't give him the whole bale of hay. So it's the same thing. As long as we are giving somebody some of that bale of hay so they're being fed, I think it's worthwhile. And if we get to give them the whole bale, then that's wonderful. It's an opportunity for us to serve. And at the end, this is a tool that's supposed to help serve and make the world a better place.
I agree. And I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to do this with you. I think it's worth sharing some of the great conversations we've had across campus. And if there's one takeaway from today, it's that if I can do it, if Bob can do it, you can do it. Don't be afraid to fail. And, come learn alongside us. It's exciting. This is something that is transformative. It's already changed how I work, how I operate in my daily life, how I communicate. So we want to share that excitement and also like some of the pitfalls and the other things with you and do it together.
Alethea, thank you so much. Friends, thank you so much for listening. We hope that you found value in this. Thank you to our library partners who've agreed to host us for this amazing session. Thank you to the fine folks at OIT who have sponsored our opportunity to be able to be here. Thank you so much, Alethea. I am grateful. Until next time, friends.
Thank you so much for joining us. This has been the Real B.S. about AI.
With your hosts, Alethea and Bob Slier, coming to you previously recorded from the heart of Las Vegas in the UNLV campus.
Please join us next time in the place you found us last time.